Oh, time flies. Like I said it every week, but it really does. Tori and Jonathan, I like to help people tell their stories, and this is TJ Talks, the podcast. I am going to come out and say this now. I would have liked more time to do this episode, but life typically doesn't give you all the time that you want. You're on its time. Just got to work with it. So I'm going to come out and say this from the jump. The only thing on this pad this week is the title. Diversify. Do diversify. I have had a long history with being able to do a lot of different things. I always would go around and figure out how to do something and then optimize the process for doing that thing. I would always try and be my best as long as I was interested. And then one thing that stuck with me right around my teenage years, where I was still figuring out what I want to do. Okay, I love art. How am I getting paid for this though? I vaguely remember saying this to myself in the most unpoetic way I could think of. Whatever you do, you got to stick to that one thing, because I refuse to be a starving artist. I've said this many of times on this podcast, but I refuse to be a starving artist. This is a common theme throughout my entire teenage years. And I was listening to people every time they said, the jack of all trades is the master of none. That stuck with me. I'm going to come back to that quote a little bit later, but I said, okay, I'm going to stick to just a certain amount of things that I can do, that I love to do, that I'm capable of doing. Okay, at the time it was graphic design. I made beats. I guess I know how to record and engineer. I'll do that too. And I'm figuring out this whole camera thing. This is right around when I graduated high school to 2011, 2012. I had my things. It's like, okay, this is all I do. Graphic design, whatever that meant at the time. I made beats. And I'm learning this camera. I can take photos now. 2012, 2014. I'm not in love with graphic design anymore. I'm falling out of love with making the beats right now. I'm really learning this camera. 2014 to 2016. I'm not really making beats anymore. I don't really like graphic design that much. I'm just going to stick with this camera. You see the process here on how I started with a whole bunch of things and then I whittled it down to one thing. That's all well and good. But do not throw the techniques you've gathered in the jack of all trades stage out. Do diversify. I just recently came to an understanding with myself and realizing while I did not and I do not like graphic design as it was presented to me in 2010, 2011, 2012. Nowadays, I still have the eyes from that. I can see when something is off. I can see when something needs to be changed. I have an opinion on colors. I know what colors work well together. I know how things work together. I still have the designer eyes. Do diversify. Those designer eyes that I gained and picked up in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, even though I fell out of love with graphic design as it was presented to me then, I still have the skills from there. I use my designer eyes every day. I set up my camera, take a picture, shoot a video, shoot a course. I use my designer eyes, even though I don't particularly love where I got them anymore. Do diversify. I might not love everything that goes into the audio production realm. I did it all at one point in time. I was the audio engineer. I was the mix and master. I was the beat maker. I was the full-on producer. I was the final mastering, and I would get the final product out. I did that 24 times and counting for just me. And then I've done it for others about 6 or 7 times on projects that were just me, on projects that were for others. I picked up a whole bunch of tools in that. And one thing that I still use to this day is the fact that in that process, while I might not love music production the way I did then, although you could argue back in 2018 that I caught a bug, and in 2019 I really caught a bug that turned into about 6 or 7 projects, 3 of which still haven't seen the light of day. I learned other techniques in things that became valuable to me. One, time management and how to be efficient. I know how to make what I like. I learned a lot about, okay, I like this. I'm not feeling this anymore. I learned a lot about time management. If you're not feeling something, stop beating the dead horse trying to make it into something. Go do something else. And if you're tired, leave it alone. I learned that coming back to it with a fresh mind gave me new perspective. Every single time. Do diversify. While I might not be 100% music production anymore, I can still make a beat if I want to. I can still make a vibe if I want to. I proved it to myself last week. I made a beat that I fell in love with. I made a beat yesterday that I fell in love with. I can still do the music production aspect that I love. The beat making. I can say with 100% confidence now, I am a beat maker. I can be the full-on music producer, but I do prefer being the beat maker. The other aspects of production, when it comes to producer, I have done the music producer side. Now I'm the film producer side more so. I like generating and creating and establishing and developing ideas for visual aspects. But do keep in mind, do diversify. Since I came from the musical side, I have an input there and I know what works, what doesn't work, what can be better. Diversifying is all well and good. And you remember that quote I said earlier about jack of all trades, master of none? I learned about the full quote, I want to say in 2020 or 2019. I want to say it was 2020. I finally learned about the entire quote. It's jack of all trades, master of none is sometimes better than master of one. That stuck with me the moment I heard it in its entirety. Do diversify. When you have multiple skills that you are good at, polish them. Don't just throw them away. Even if you fall out of love with it, you learn something along the way. And that's what's most important. Do diversify. And I think I've said everything I wanted to say. Pretty good for just a title. Patting myself on the back. Tori and Jonathan, I like to help people tell their stories, and this is TJ Talks, the podcast. And I hope to talk to you next week. Later.